Hello everyone and welcome to week 8. As you can see, I am back in the comfy confines of my office, complete with my trophy case for my vanquished enemies. I have yet to get the Viking blood up there with the rest of them because it is so heavy that I'm going to have to rig up something special. This week, the Vikings are hosting the Saints on a Sunday night football game. Because it's a night game, this week I will be drinking Valkyrie Brewing Company's Night Wolf. See what I did there? All right, let's pop the top. Check it out, Josh. Ooh. All right, so this is Night Wolf, a German-style Schwarzbier. As you know, Schwarz is German for black. Go figure. Check that out. If you hold it up to the light, it's real dark brown, but it's basically black. Let's give it a taste. That's a tough one to pin down. I would say that the hoppiness comes through, but I don't get the real dry mouthfeel aftertaste kind of thing. It's smoother. Again, I'm not very good with describing beers, but it's got the beer kind of bitterness, but it's not overly powerful. It's smooth, and all in all, I gotta say it's pretty good. I'm not sure it would be my go-to to drink a lot of it. It's a little maybe too dry for me on that in that sense. As a one or two, these are delicious, and I could see someone falling in love with it. I mean, I can get on board with this. Yeah, because I'm not very good at talking about these beers. I thought I would go to their website. Just Google Valkyrie Brewing Company if you're interested. They also have a Facebook page. I was looking into how they describe their own beer to see if I could agree or disagree, or So it said it is a Schwarz beer with a sweet chocolatey nose with slightly spiced notes up front, leading to maple and molasses flavors and a hint of nuts with a quick dry finish. I can see most of that. Molasses and chocolate are definitely it's a smooth, heavier beer, and I could definitely see those describing this. I'm not sure if I get the maple, but I think I know where they're getting that idea from, if that makes sense. Definitely the nuts. I can get that kind of nuttiness from it. All in all, pretty good. We're going 2 for 2 with the Valkyrie Brewing Company so far. On to the game. First off, the obvious storyline. This is a rematch from last year's NFC Divisional Round playoff game, or as many people simply know it, the Minneapolis Miracle. That was the game in which Stefon Diggs was able to take a 61-yard reception to what should have been out of bounds and set up for a field goal. Instead, he stayed inbounds and ran it back for a touchdown with no time left on the clock, taking back what had been a brilliant comeback by Drew Brees and the Saints. I'm assuming I'm not alone when I say that I, like many Vikings fans, was already holding my head in my hands after watching the Vikings blow another big game or choke away another big game, and instead they came back and won, which makes it a miracle. It turns out the heartbreak I was expecting was only postponed by 1 week, but that's sports. What are you going to do? In my mind, the Saints are quietly becoming a pretty hardy rival of the Vikings. Or it's nothing on the scale of like the Packers. But, they've had a lot of postseason meetings, and it seems like whenever the Vikings have a good team, that same season the Saints are like a benchmark that you're going to have to get past. In 2009, the Saints were having their crazy undefeated year, while the Vikings, being led by Brett Favre, were also having their crazy undefeated year. The Vikings blew a game, and then it's like, oh, the Saints are going to for sure have home field advantage now. But then the Saints lost, and then the Vikings lost, and then the Saints lost again, and it's like the Vikings got to win one. They still had to go into the Superdome to play in the NFC Championship game in 2009, and sure, they didn't do themselves any favors by fumbling the ball so much and Favre's like bizarre last play interception, which allowed the Saints to take it to overtime. But let's not forget that the Saints totally cheated in that game because of Bountygate, in which they were paying players to hurt other players. Sean Payton was suspended the following season because of his involvement in that whole thing. Brett Favre was on the receiving end of a lot of those bounty hits, which might explain why he was a little rattled towards the end of the game and not quite ready to make that throw. He'd been getting trucked all night. Anyway, more recently, they opened the 2017 season at home against the Saints, where Sam Bradford eviscerated them, and all of Vikings fans are like, "Our team's the real deal. We're gonna go." But the Saints had an awful defense to start the year. They got a little better later on, but in week one, Sam Bradford looked like a world beater, and then he kind of withered away to nothingness, and now he's getting paid by the Cardinals to hold a clipboard. Then there was the Minneapolis Miracle game, and now the Vikings are 4-2-1, and the Saints are 5-1. This game, to me, is the season for the Vikings. I'll elaborate on that. It's not just a hot take. First, the Vikings schedule. They have the powerful Saints at home today. Then they have the Lions visiting next week. Then they have the bye. Coming out of the bye, they roll into games at Chicago, where they never do well. Then they host the Packers, who refuse to lay down and die. Then they travel to the Patriots, then all the way across the other side of the country to play the Seahawks. They need to beat the Saints today to keep pace in the NFC. It's a very tough conference. The Saints are likely the most complete team the Vikings are going to face the rest of the season. If they can get the win, they can't by any means take their feet off the gas. But they need to win. Playing in Chicago, New England, and Seattle is never easy, and you can never expect an easy game from the Packers, no matter where they play. If they lose, they're going to have to play out of their minds the rest of the season, not to lose the pace that the other NFC leaders have set. The Rams are already pulling away, of course. The Vikings are basically tied with the Redskins and the Panthers, with only a one-game lead on the Buccaneers, Packers, Lions, and Seahawks. Again, it's a tight conference. There is a lot of football left to play, though, so pardon me. I'll get back to tonight's game. The Night Wolf that the beer refers to is the beast Fenrir, who the gods tricked into being bound to a stone until he's able to shackles, eat the stars and consume the moon, and usher in Ragnarok, the end of all time. Similarly, Drew Brees is playing like a beast possessed. He's getting a bit overshadowed by the crazy year Mahomes is having, as well as the undefeated season the Rams have put up so far, but he is possibly playing the best football of his life. He's been almost perfect. You may have heard he broke the all-time passing yards record. He joined the 500 touchdown club. He is about to break his own record for completion percentage in a season, and he has yet to throw an interception. He's been helped by his monster wide receiver, Michael Thomas, who didn't drop a pass for the first 2 or 3 games this year. And, of course, the deadly running back combination of Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And from what I saw last week, Sean Payton, the head coach, is being very careful to mix up how he uses the 2 running backs. Last year, it got a bit to the point where you could tell if they were going to run or pass depending on which running back was in the game. Whereas now, they're throwing passes to Mark Ingram, and they're running Kamara up the middle, and the Vikings are going to have to stay on their toes or risk getting tricked. I say all that to lend more weight to what I'm about to say. The Vikings are super banged up on defense. The good news, first, is that one of the league's top pass rushers, Everson Griffin, is back after being sidelined for several weeks with a mental health issue. Obviously, one is glad that Everson is back and healthy as a human standpoint, and we're also hoping, as fans, that he is able to play and make a huge impact on this game. The bad news is the Vikings a couple weeks ago lost Mike Hughes, the promising rookie quarterback, for the season with a torn ACL. Veteran safety Andrew Sendejo is out with a groin injury. Anthony Barr is out with a hamstring injury. And Xavier Rhodes is looking very doubtful to play tomorrow. Xavier Rhodes is a top cornerback. Quietly, but he definitely is. And even while Michael Thomas was able to put up some real yards and 2 touchdowns on him last year in the playoff game, I'm terrified of what Michael Thomas will do to some second-string cornerback the Vikings trot out. Now, Mike Zimmer is a defensive-minded head coach, and he is proven to be pretty good at scheming defenses, but the Saints are playing so well right now In short, I'm not confident about tonight's game. In fact, I am bricks. You need to have fast, athletic linebackers to corral those two stud running backs. And you need to have a really sweet secondary to control Drew Brees' passing attack. He hasn't thrown an interception this year, which, yeah, I mean, it's kind of fluky. Like, not one batted pass or not one, receiver got hit in the hands and kind of bounced it up. But still, he's playing some highly precise football right now, and there's a real chance the Vikings get eviscerated on defense. On the flip side, the Saints have a great running defense and a pretty weak passing defense. Pretty soft. I won't call them weak, but they've been allowing a lot of yardage. That's interesting because, again, the Vikings are without Dalvin Cook. Possibly they're saying, there's rumors that he might be out until after the Vikings bye week, trying to make sure he's super healthy and ready for a late season run. Latavius Murray has looked functional, but I'm not expecting him to do much against one of the league's top rushing defenses. Cousins, Thielen, and Diggs, though, look like the real deal. The big risk here is going to be the Saints' defensive line getting to Cousins before he can pass. They've looked really good, and Cousins is allowing strip sack fumbles like way too often, which I'm concerned could be an issue in our season this year. Hopefully, the Vikings' high-flying passing attack will be able to keep pace with Drew Brees, and the Vikings' defense can slow them down at least enough to get the Vikings the win here. All that said, and with very, very little confidence, I'm going to predict the Vikings get a win. I don't expect I'll be able to relax until well after the game has ended, much like last year's playoff game. If they were playing in New Orleans, I'd almost for sure crown the Saints the victor. I really think they're going to give the Vikings a huge handful. I do think this game is a high-scoring affair, like the Rams. But there's also this part of me that's like, look how the Bills game went. Look how slow and dull the Jets game was. Granted, there's a lot of wind involved there, but maybe it's possible that both teams just grind it out somehow on defense, and it's a really slow, boring game. I just think all the signs point to it being an up and down the field, whoever has the ball last wins kind of game, which does not make it easy to relax. I think overall the Saints have the better, more rounded team, but hopefully Cousins, Thielen, and Diggs are able to pull up with another miracle. For those of you who are still watching these videos, well, first of all, bless your hearts. Thank you. I have fun with them, even if they're terrible. Maybe because they're terrible. I'm not sure. But if you stay tuned in to next week, I'm going to try to get it sorted out so the video is a little higher quality and the audio is a little bit better. We'll see. Until next week, skål för det här. Go Vikings. Definitely the nuts.